So, guys, here in Malaysia, we have launched the Horology Club, which, for those that follow social media and YouTube, will probably seen the three guys in Hong Kong who set it up there. I met with the guys last year, and they were quite interested to expand outside Hong Kong. So I've opened up the chapter here. Guys, get in touch if you want to be a part of it. We've got a few exciting events planned in the next few months here in Malaysia. And it's open to everyone. So we accept everyone from G-Shock collectors, Seiko collectors to complicated Pateks. So it's very much a friendly environment where people can come and enjoy. And we are looking to partner with a range of different watch brands, watch equipment like straps, etc., etc. So watch this space. Yeah, anyone just hit me up and add you to our group.
Fair enough. All right. I think this is a perfect segue to move on to our next topic, right? I think which we covered a little bit of it, but I think a lot of audience would want to know, right, what happened to Cartier Watch. Now, you briefly mentioned
Mhm.
about it in terms of the taste change and you want to try to experiment with
Yeah,
different watch, but give us the full details, right? What happened?
because obviously Cartier, I still love Cartier. CartierWatchNerd is still going. I'm still obviously quite active on that and doing a lot of articles and stuff for publications. Um, I just sort of got to a point where a few little things. Obviously, there's a lot of what I've noticed over the last few years with Cartier is it's become. It's always been commercial, but there was that feeling of maybe a smaller sort of company in a larger sort of world. So it was more about the watches, releasing them. There was less about having to sell, bundle, bundle, bundle. And I noticed over the years, since they've become more and more popular, there was more sales. It was more getting mass amounts of watches
Mm,
out there. So there was that. I noticed with obviously that, and obviously looking to produce more and more, that some of the quality issues happen. And I've had watches as well where the quality wasn't as I thought it would be. And then it took a very long time to obviously get fixed. And I was a bit turned off by the whole customer experience at that point. I had straps that took nearly 12 months to replace and all sorts of things. So it just gave me a little bit of, not a bad taste, but and again, it's just third world problems. I just thought there'd be a bit better, the whole experience. And then look, I've had NSOs, but I've also noticed that the NSOs have gone crazy as well. Like there's so many NSOs out there, and there's so many different designs. There's so many people copying different designs as well. And we got to a point now where rare watches like the Cartier Crash, it's not that rare anymore. Like there's NSOs, you see so many everywhere. The Cintre, which was a very sort of a rare watch, there's now more NSOs out there than the actual production. So I'm actually really glad that they suspended that whole NSO program this year, which will hopefully get things back on track. But yeah, look, I think it was more the customer experience that I had, which yeah, and it's not all their fault as well. I know there were some issues, but I just didn't think that that would happen, and I didn't think that it would take so long to rectify. Um, there was some issue with one of the dials on my watches, and it took nearly a year to rectify, going backwards and forwards. And there was lack of communication. I didn't hear back what was going on, didn't get updates. I had to chase, and then no one knew. It just kept going on and on and on. And when you spend that much on a watch that you don't have for a year, not knowing what's going on, so the opportunity cost, you could have spent that money elsewhere, or you could have had that money in the bank rather than sitting in it on a watch that you don't even have.
mhm.
So there was that, and then obviously, like I said, like I got to a point where with the whole customer side, the way Cartier was changing, from my point of view, I started getting more and more interested in looking outside that. So look, where I am right now, like I still like Cartier. I still like looking at the watches. I'm probably scrutinizing them a little bit more and probably being a little bit more honest in what how I feel. But at the end of the day, I still love Cartier. That's still one of my favorite brands. I don't have a big collection of Cartier now. I'm not ruling it out, but I think for me now, I think I'd rather look at Neo Vintage or CPCP, rather than the modern side. Modern's just getting too mass produced. For example, they have limited editions, like the one shot they call them a few years ago. Then all of a sudden they're releasing them as regular production, like the colored tanks. So a lot of that stuff, I just as a collector who collected these pieces because of the exclusivity, then watching them reproduce and stuff, it just sort of doesn't sit well. Whereas if you look at the vintage watches or neo vintage, there's some really nice watches. Right now, I wouldn't buy. They're very overly priced, but I think there'll be a price correction just like all the other brands eventually. And once that price starts going down, you'll get some really nice sort of CPCP or even pre-CPCP watches, similar to the Tortu that I had the last time when I saw you guys. So for me,
So,
yeah, right now, fallen out of, I shouldn't say fallen out of love. I still like the brand, but I don't have the collection I once did, and I probably won't look at buying any modern pieces in the foreseeable future unless something magical appeared and maybe the prices corrected themselves because the prices are going up very high, and I think they're now targeting a different sort of collector. Mm. It's
right.
priced out a lot of people.
Let's get into it a little bit more, right? In terms of your, you mentioned the disappointment you have regarding the customer service and so on. Do you think this is the is a cause of a broken SOP that they have, or is it a cause of greed? Because they went up and coming so fast, they went up to take over the number two spots in terms of the luxury
Yep.
watches, and that's the cause of it. It's just due to greed, or it's just due to like bad management. Yeah.
I think, okay, look, I want to just make sure. So the people locally have always been good, and like Alicia and stuff. I don't have anything bad to say. I think it's maybe up above them. Like there's been a big change, and I think it's the SOPs. It's different. They've grown so fast over the last few years, and when you peel back. Being not a collector, you can probably see the business sense. Yes, they want to capitalize. Right now, they're going crazy. Like they're second behind Rolex, which they haven't been before. So yes, they obviously want to capitalize now and release more and more of sell, sell, sell. So I think it's more of the company's way forward, or maybe Richemont's way forward, the bigger owner. And if you look at Richemont, actually, look at all the brands under Richemont. They've all gone crazy in prices. They've had quality issues as well. There's been a lot of issues, mostly with those brands under the Richemont. And I think Cartier have also they're a they're part of a big, huge cog, and they have to hit their sales targets. They have to hit their financials. So yes, I think it's more from the above, and it's trickled down. Um, the customer service, they're always very nice people in all the boutiques. It's just obviously sometimes the issues that I've had and experienced, it was out of their hands. And there was, I think, to be honest, like it was mostly very small mistakes, but small mistakes that weren't handled very well, which then was like it got bigger and bigger and bigger, and it just pushed me maybe further away. Something that could have been fixed maybe with better communication or more updates or maybe honesty or actually just saying, look, I really don't know. Let me find out. But it just went bigger than bigger and it just kept snowballing into bigger and bigger and bigger. And then I just got like more and more frustrated by it. But yeah, I think it's probably maybe greed, I guess, from their parent company. But I think it's actually just more smart business. They're capitalizing on their biggest growth. Um, what happens if they're not the number two in the next few years? And Cartier were always a slow sort of brand in the watch side. It's only been maybe the last maybe 5 years that they've really been in the spotlight. So I think for them, it's just make hay while it's while what's the saying? Make hay while the sun shines, or something like that.
Fair enough.
But yeah, I think it's just again, it's just business, and sales became the first priority, maybe more so than customer service or quality of workmanship, or how do they fix issues rather than attracting new clients.
Right.
So, but look, again, like the brand, I still am a Cartier guy, so CartierWatchNerd will continue. I still like looking at all the new releases. Like this year, I liked getting all the information and helping people out with the prices and stuff and publishing that. I still like talking about Cartier and looking at the different watches. And there's so much history there, so that's not going to stop. It's just I'm maybe just going to step away from the modern pieces now. Could change, like maybe in a few years' time, something magical comes out and I get back on it. But for now, it's just going to sit out on the sidelines, going to wait for the CPCP and vintage prices to go back down to reality.
Gotcha.
Because it's too crazy now. It's just ridiculous. Simple watches years ago that might have gone for less than 10,000 USD, and now it's looking at like the bamboo. You could buy it for maybe 5 to 8,000 USD a few years back, and now they're commanding like 100,000 for some of them.
Right.
So yeah, I think I think we've seen a lot with the watch brands as well. So even outside of Cartier, like I mentioned, like look at JFC, their prices went up stupidly over the
Mm.
last few years, and um, even Vacheron, like again, prices just went crazy, and it was getting harder and harder to get these watches. It was turning into another wait list or having to be VVIP to even get invited into the boutique. So I think there needs to be a big correction. And I think we're seeing that now with the way the market's going. Luxury is slowing down. If the tariffs also come, I think brands will have to start looking at customer service and how do they attract and keep customers more than maybe what it was like during the boom times where they were selling watches regardless of how they treat customers.
Fair enough. So I'm very interested to get your thoughts on like what do you think Cartier should do? Like if you are
Yep.
managing Cartier right now, right? Obviously, like I mentioned, there's two side of things, right? One, you need to get the financial going in order to keep the business going, right?
Hmm.
But the other thing of it is it the long term is it beneficial? Because if you're looking too much on the financials, then you're losing out in terms of the lights of the watch enthusiast, right? Is that going to be more beneficial for you to lose out the watch enthusiast to get more sales from the general public, the more mainstream, like I say, non-watch enthusiasts that mainly just want it for fashion accessories and so on? Is that going to be better for Cartier from a financial perspective? Long term, short term, what do you think about that? Yeah.
Look, Cuddy is always a multi-faceted. So I think, to be honest, most of their profits would come from their high jewelry and
Mm,
jewelry pieces. Watches have always, well, Cartier have always been a big sort of watchmaker. But again, most of their profit, there's more profit margin in selling a diamond necklace or
mm,
that. I think for Cartier, though, what I would like to see, and I think we might see this now with the new CEO. He's already got rid of the NSO program.
mm,
He's going to wipe that away and say we're going to focus. I think it will turn in very similar to what he did with Vacheron.
mm,
They still had it, but you just don't see them. You don't
mm,
see them on Instagram. It's very serious collectors. I think what I'd like to see is for them to go back to their roots again. They were always that family sort of feel jeweler, watchmaker, with it in a bigger sort of world. So go back to the roots. I think they need to look at still providing options. So yes, those the cheaper range, like the everyday production ones, where you might have a female, your wife, or someone walks in, and yes, I might buy that stainless steel tank. I think that line is very important, and I think they need to obviously keep that. But I think they also need to look at the higher horology and really start looking after their watch enthusiasts. They did that quite well a few years back. They started obviously the Cartier watch community on Instagram, and it started to build that community. I think now that the watch market has maybe dropped a bit, there, and not just in Malaysia, but in other areas, I think they've maybe turned away from that watch side to focus on where the profits are.
mm-hmm,
So I think if they are really interested in keeping their watch brand going strong, they have to go back to focusing on the watch enthusiasts, do more events, invest in more sort of like community sort of areas, inviting people to come in and learn more about the watches, go back to teaching about the history side. I would go back to their roots,
mm-hmm,
explain the history, explain the journey, look at being a little bit more careful on their
mm-hmm,
releases rather than mass producing watches that are supposed to be limited.
mm-hmm.
Yes, you need to still be able to provide watches to people out there on some sort of scale, but there's some brands where some models where collectors like the fact that it's exclusive or that's limited. I don't think by just mass producing some of these watches like the Crash Sintre, it doesn't really do well for the brand long term. Right now, the Crash was always such a rare bird, and it was really hard to see them. Now you see them all the time, and it's going to be hard to get that specialness back.
Hmm.
So yeah, go back to the roots. I think if you release a limited edition watch, keep it limited. Don't release one the next year in a different design and as a regional release. Cartier became very much like the Grand Seiko or Hublot, where every few months there was a new regional edition out or a new limited edition, or a watch club releases like 10 different 10 different versions. It was nearly every month you'll see something on Instagram. So get rid of that. Stick to this year's limited edition is this watch. There's X amount of pieces. Be fair with the allocations, so make sure that the right people are getting them. People that are passionate, people that have collected watches for a long time, and go back to the customer service side. They need to get the service back. Make sure that the quality is good, aftercare service is there, um, and I think it's still possible. I think now is probably the best time to start changing it because as the watch market's starting to go down, to win now you have to be doing something different to win than other companies. Look at independent scene right now. They are more personable. You can get invited to the manufacturer. You can go down to meet the CEO, and the CEO knows you by name. He follows you on Instagram. I think if Cartier or other big brands started going back to that environment where the customer is king, customer attraction on point, I think they will do a lot better.
Right. Let me raise a controversial point here, right? On in terms of you're talking about watch being more exclusive, right? So like you can correct me if I'm wrong because I may not be an expert in this, but the NSO, I don't think there was ever a clause that says that the watch will be exclusive to you, right? So,
No.
yeah, yeah.
So you sign a contract. In the contract, don't quote me word for word, but it basically says there that this is not a piece unique. It is a custom order for you, but Cartier have the right to reproduce that watch. So look, it hasn't affected me. No one's ever copied mine, but I know a lot of other collectors who they have felt a bit disappointed because their same design has been reproduced many times. I think the argument that some of these collectors are saying is that if you've been a big supporter, you've spent a lot of money, you've bought NSOs, you would think that there would be some sort of not agreement, but they would maybe try to not create exactly the same model. Yes, you can take influence. Yes, you can use something similar, but at least be a little bit different. Whereas there's been one for one reproductions. So what it does, it hurts your watch, a watch that you designed for yourself. You designed it because you want it to be special or something different, and then all of a sudden you go to a watch meet and someone's got pretty much the same watch on their wrist. You can imagine how that feels for someone who spent so much money. It's sort of like, when you get a tattoo, a good tattoo artist, even if you saw that their tattoo on someone else, they're not going to do the same one. They might take different influences from it, but they don't want to produce the same one twice. There's no contract, there's no agreement, but it's just the way that they are. I think now with the program now, I think it's going to be back to that. NSO program was very much, I think what ruined the NSO program was social media. People are putting wrist shots out. Then people are taking that wrist shot they see on Instagram and showing their essay saying, I want this one. And to be honest, Cartier have sales targets. So if they're really desperate to get the sale, then maybe they're going to say, yeah, let's get this one on board. So it just blew out really quickly. And social media, COVID, all of that sort of those few years, everyone was just all of a sudden, bang, I want to do it at NSO. Whereas NSO program has been going on for many years, but not many people knew about it. It wasn't so mass known. Some of those big collectors out there who are a bit upset, they've been getting NSOs for many, many years before any of these people got them. So, look, I can see from both sides of the story, to be honest. Yes, it was never a piece unique, and you never had full rights on it. But I think that maybe the brand should have protected it maybe a little bit more, or told some customers, no, we're not going to reproduce the same, but we can do something similar.
Fair enough. So let's continue on from that, right? So yes, I think I can see your point, especially with the tattoo analogy. Like tattoo,
Mm.
usually there isn't really a pure black and white that says this design is there as well, but tattoo artists usually don't, right? But in terms of allocating the right amount of NSO, would you think that this is to a certain extent gatekeeping? If we start limiting NSO and so on, are you like gatekeeping? Is this sort of starting to becoming a little bit elitist for
But,
Cartier collectors already? Like,
but you got to think, like, first of all, not many brands actually have an NSO program like this. So first of all, it's actually something quite special. The NSO program was always there to reward either their top spending customers or their most passionate sort of collectors. So collectors that have been through the journey, they've been interested in the brand, they've showed their commitment. What happened over the last few years, and maybe it's because they were trying to get their sales and obviously start continuing. You've got to remember the Privé line that comes out once a year. It comes out in March and they're pretty much all allocated by a few months later, and that's their sales all gone for the year. The NSO program added another extra revenue stream. So yes, it went crazy. You had some boutiques around the world where they were bundling, saying buy some of these skeletons which are hard to sell, like the Santos skeleton or the Sintre skeleton, and we'll get you on the list for NSO. So that's what I'm saying. Like, yes, you can still give them out, but you're giving them out to people who are just buying up watches to get their sales. You know what I mean? It started becoming less of this is a special watch for you. We want to reward you for being true to the brand. To okay, you're going to buy two of these hard to sell watches that's sitting in our boutique, and I'm going to give you buy these two. I'll give you this NSO. And that's where you've now started seeing so many NSOs on the market. You see someone get an NSO and then it's straight away sold somewhere else. So it just started spiraling. And I have spoken to some collectors though as well, and we never really knew what the NSO numbers were before social media. So for all we know, they could have been giving out the same numbers before, and we only now start realizing because we see it in our faces every day, and none of us are ever going to know that. I think with NSOs or with special orders, you still need to have some exclusivity. I'm not saying that you only limit it to five people a year, sort of thing, but there needs to be something special. Otherwise, you might as well just go and buy the normal watches on the shelf, or go and buy the Privé edition. The watches that really gatekeep it, like the Vacherons and Patek to a certain degree, those watches, when you finally get given one, it actually means something. Like wow, you don't see many people getting this watch, and all of a sudden I've been given the call that I can now design something special. I think it's a bit of a hard one because if you're not in that Cartier collector circle, it's going to be very hard then to even get one, and then that's where people get disappointed too. So I think it's very hard for a brand. Look at Rolex; it's very hard to allocate, and there's always going to be people that are going to be very happy, always going to be people that hate the brand, so annoyed with the brand. But as soon as they get the phone call, they love the brand again. Um, I think there just needs to be
a
maybe they
balance in
set
a way, yeah.
yeah, look, maybe they set a balance that each region has X amount of NSOs they can do a year, and there can't be X amount. It can't be 100% or can't be 90% Sintre, because I think they have to protect their brand equity. You can't have just pumping out all these watches, because those old school collectors that have been there from the start, all those guys that have hunted out all these old Cintres and got these really special pieces because they thought that they were something special or rare. And then all of a sudden you have the brand pumping out very similar watches to what you bought. It just, there's always going to be someone who's going to be happy, someone's going to be sad. And I do have to admit, like, it is a hard job to be an SA or work in a boutique. You can't, I wouldn't know what to do. Like, you can't really keep everyone happy, and you're never going to be able to keep anyone happy. But you just have to, the company has to have some balance. Um, so I think AP, as much as we all hate it, but I think they do have a bit, they do reward their good customers. And I know it's hard to get in there, but once you're in the AP sort of world, it's quite it's not easy, but it's quite clear what you need to do to get those pieces. And yes, it's all about spending money, all about keeping your watches, but they control it, I think, a little bit better. They don't just go, bang, here's 200 watches of the same, we're going to release it to the market. And I'm
So
not
I
saying
think
it all has to be like that, but there has to be still some specialness about watches to reward your true collectors, but then also have some other watches available that are completely different,
Mm.
where the day-to-day people can still strive to get, and then one day work their way up.
James, I just want to throw a 2 cents in, right? I think to your original question about it being elitist, I think the NSO has to be elitist. You cannot afford it not to be. I'm just trying to draw two parallels very quickly, right? One, if you look at Patek, whenever they've ever done a very special piece, right, it's in their full control, and if it ever shows up, it's so unique and it's at such a high price range. It's only ever like a grand complication or anything. They never make a standard Calatrava special order. It's always a grand complication or something like that. You have to raise the bar very, very high for anyone to get in there. And once you get in there, only an elite group of people can get there. But I also find that it's in such an interesting dilemma that you have potential ways to innovate. And even this watch that I'm wearing on my wrist is an example of that, right? So if you think of it in a different way, right? How MB&F figured something out like this is you cannot go on the street and buy, for example, the purple version of what I'm wearing. They decide that it's based on this group of people, they will get it, right? Even though it's a democratized model as well. But even to get that, the gatekeeping is there. You have to buy a horological machine of some sort. You have to cross that mark first, right? I think where any such program has to exist is one, it has to be exclusive, not just exclusive, but you do it to the sort of product that already operates on a very, very high price of entry anyway. You don't do it to a standard model. So to butcher it all together, right, you should never do a custom Submariner, right? You should never do a custom tank. It has to be something that already point of entry, $200,000. To even get there as a standard model, you get there already. Then if you're going to do a NSO, it operates in that space. That makes it a bit more special. Yes, elitist, you have to be able to afford that space, but the exclusivity is understood, right? Why you are getting it versus someone else. The aspiration also makes it real, meaning if I one day have a net worth to be able to afford that, then I know I fall into that camp that can talk, at least have a conversation. But then you go back to the world of Patek again, right? It's like, I will think about it. I cannot guarantee you that I will do it for you. You can ask, but if I decide to give it to you, I decide to give it to you, right? But it has to be special. So that special parts do exist. That's just my 2 cents about it.
Or you do it similar to like MB&F, where you have a limited number and it's a raffle and those people are drawn out, like a Willy Wonka.
Yeah.
You have a raffle, there might be 5 custom watches available each year, and you go into some sort of lottery, and if you're chosen, you are right, Woody. For those sort of watches, you do still need to, there needs to be some sort of elite, or otherwise, what's the point of doing them? It's just going to be like every other watch. And you can't keep everyone happy, but I think the best way is, yes, you have it so you set the bar so high so only certain people can buy it, or you make it some sort of like MB&F where there's some sort of lottery, there's a limited number, and if you're lucky enough to get it, you get it. If not,
Yep.
you can't please everyone. But I think if you're going to want to keep your watch enthusiasts and your real collectors happy, you should make sure that they're looked after, and any watches they've invested or had special editions that they've spent a lot of money on, you don't want to just all of a sudden start releasing something similar in mass production, because it's just going to upset the people that have been there for such a long time.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah.
Patek do it very well, to be honest, but man, we would you and us three here will probably never see one of those watches.
Never say never, right? We win a lot.
Never say never. We never know.
Hey, the Paul Newman right in front of us right here.
Yeah. I always say that if I win a lottery, I'll probably not let people know, but there will be signs, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, I think thank thank you so much for sharing. Right, I think it's been
It's all right.
really interesting, and I think a lot of speculation has been going on, especially those who have been following Nick. You've been wondering what's going on and so on, and
I get so
at,
many strange messages sometimes from I hate mail sometimes as well, or all sorts of funny things. I have to show you some of the messages sometimes. Guys, end of the day, I still love the brand. Just fell out of love with it for a while. But this is normal. Like we said before, you go through different tastes in life, and you might not love everything forever. You might come back to it later. And we're all human. And there's no point hating on someone because all of a sudden you're not seeing them wear Cartier, or something I said years ago that I'm 100% Cartier, and all of a sudden now I'm not. And people think that I'm lying and I'm trying to just hide. Like, end of the day, tastes change, and nothing is always going to be forever.
to me, like I said, I'll raise another point, right? If you don't have some, I believe change happens in everybody's collection. Be it whether how big it is, it's going to be different. Like Woody, you wouldn't 2 years ago you say Woody would own a matte one, you probably know, right? And I would say I spoke to Woody as well last week. It's like back then, when Rolex released the Oyster Perpetual in the colors, I called them out in like the podcast that we released. I thought it was tasteless. It was a very easy move to just pop in several colors in the OP. But now being somebody who have owned practically most of the Rolex collection, I do see the OP being a very interesting option to spice things up, right? It is something, a color that you don't have in your collection, right? So that's how I see things differently as well as we evolve in terms of our watch journey, right? And that's only normal, right? And I think it's only healthy that you have a bunch of watch enthusiasts. This is why we are watch enthusiasts in the first place, right? You have watch enthusiasts that, at the end of the day, support one of each other and understand in the terms of the stage of journey that we're in. We may not agree, but we understand and we definitely respect that and so on. And that's what it's all about. We support each other and growing all of our individual path that we're taking, right? So just quit with the hating. That's all I can say. Yeah.
Exactly. But at the end of the day, buy and enjoy what you like. And if you fall out of love, then find something else. So, and like Woody said, like if you have a break for a while, and you always can come back to it later.
Perfect. Well, I think that's
Woody, I can't wait to see what your one and done is, though. I'm going to be waiting anxiously.
we'll check back in a few years later and see if that's still the case. Right? But let's see. Right. But yeah, I think this is a perfect way to end it. Yeah, so like I said, we are fully back in terms of our watch podcast. We have several things lined up as well. Let's just see if we have more with Nick or more with several other people.
Anytime, guys.
We are still thinking about it. Especially, I think this is a good year to come back. Especially, I think last year we released one episode, so this year we have already doubled that. So we're already in ahead. So let's keep this going, and I hope you guys enjoy it. If you guys enjoy it, or if you guys have any questions or any requests or query, just pop it into the comments. It's going to be I think we'll probably split this episode into two, but yeah, this is going to be a very long one. I hope you guys enjoy it, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks.
See ya.
Bye.